Hi, here's a quick tutorial on how to design and print stamps. Before we start, however, do keep in mind that this project uses sharp tools like craft blades, so I would follow any safety tips, especially the ones listed on the side. Now, as for the supplies, you'll need a 4x6 rubber stamp block, a ruler, a marker or pencil, craft blades, or optional is a woodcut or lino cut tool, paper, and an ink pad. To set up our stamp block for designing and printing, what we're going to do is we are going to take the 4x6, measure it into 2x3, 4 squares, and then I am going to score the top layer. I do not want to cut all the way through. I want to make sure that the knife is steady, and because there's no mat, I'm being very careful on how I pull. Once you get 4 even squares, what you'll do next is do the same thing with a sheet of paper, measure 4x6 into 2x3 squares, and start working on your designs. Keep in mind, these are not ones that you have to follow. These are ones that I made specifically to showcase different ways that you could test line thickness and application for your stamp project. I even added a little bit of wording. And now that that's done, we can go into cutting these down to fit the size of the actual stamps we're going to be using. Now that all 4 are done, we are going to begin the image transfer process. I'm taking a black marker and tracing over the drawing lines that I've already done, so that it'll be easier to see through once we use a light box or light source to trace and reverse that image. It's important whenever you're making stamps or prints to reverse the image so that once stamped and once printed, it is shown the right way. Next, I take pencil and I rub it along the side that we did our initial sketch on, so that once we tape the image, we can properly transfer the reversal. I secure the images down on the block with a little bit of tape. Then I begin tracing over the lines. Once I have the pencil marks down, I went over it with the black marker again and just made sure that those lines were more clear, so when I begin cutting, I have an easier time seeing exactly what it is I need to cut. This is the carving portion of the stamp making. Now, I go through different methods with different tools that you can use. The first one I'm using here is a craft blade. And as you can see, I'm going very small, very light cuts on the surface, and carving in, essentially, to cut through and make sure I can get some of that. Another thing that you can try is using a wood cutting or lino cut tool. This one is a round C looking tool. And this one has a V. Different tools can be used for different kinds of marks. I'm just getting an idea of what I want with this stamp. It's important to test how you're cutting before you begin. Something to keep in mind when designing and cutting out these images to make your stamps, you're essentially working in reverse. Whatever you cut away is going to be very blank white areas, and whatever you keep is going to have the color that you're stamping with. Once you're done carving out your stamp, next is where you can test to see if the design comes out clear enough. So I'm taking my stamp, I'm stamping it and seeing what else needs to be trimmed away from the stamp pad. I saw there were a few raised areas that I didn't want showing on my design, so I go in with my craft blade once again, and I start carving away those unwanted raised areas. Pieces that I may have forgotten about while I was doing the first initial design. Second press, just to make sure everything still looks good. And I am satisfied enough to say that that stamp is done. Here I'm showing that I did one where there was no white background, one where I added with text, and the third that has a mostly white background with just the leaves. And now you're set to make your very own stamp.